So hi, everyone. As I mentioned, we'll get started in just a few moments, but I wanted to quickly remind everyone that throughout today's presentation, you're more than welcome to pop any questions you might have into the Q&A function, the bottom of your screen there next to the raise hand function. If you have any questions that come up throughout the presentation. And as well at the end, if you want to come off mute and use the raise hand button to answer your questions directly to us, you're more than welcome to do so. And we'll make sure to get to all of them at the end of today's presentation. And we're really excited that you're all here today to join us for our webinar on the new and improved bird-friendly city and town certification standards as part of Nature Canada's bird-friendly city certification program. If this is your first time meeting me, hello, my name is Autumn Jordan. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm the urban nature organizer at Nature Canada, working on the Bird Friendly City program to mobilize and engage communities to protect, defend, and restore urban bird populations. I'm joined today by our Naturalist Director, Ted Cheskey, who will dive deep into the criteria changes and rationale behind them to ensure success for the upcoming application submission windows and renewal periods in September and February this year. But before we get started today, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the Indigenous people of all the lands we may be calling in from today across the country in this virtual space. If you're unsure whose land you're currently residing on, I encourage you to check out nativeland.ca. I'll post that link in the chat in a moment. This webinar is headquartered on the traditional unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. Their presence and culture have nurtured and contribute to nurture this beautiful land we live on. From coast to coast to coast, Nature Canada acknowledges the ancestral and unceded territory of the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this nation home across Turtle Island. We're committed to improving relationships between settler and Indigenous peoples and to improving our own understanding of colonialism and its impacts. So please take a moment to reflect and share where you may be joining us from today. Thank you all again for joining us, and I will pass the mic over to Ted.
Thank you. Can you hear me fine, Autumn? Okay, great. I hope that's true of our 18 participants I see right now. Hello, everyone. So I am Ted Cheskey, and I'm looking forward to sharing this new version of our bird-friendly city standard or bird-friendly city standards with you today. I think what I'm going to do is start just by sharing some slides that I've prepared to facilitate the presentation. Away we go. There. How is that, Autumn? Is it good?
That's perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you for coming to this webinar. So we have for many years been working towards the idea of helping out bird populations, because we know our bird populations and around the world, and certainly in Canada, are in trouble. We know that some of that trouble is largely a result of us humans and how we interact with our environment. A lot of people, I think over 80% now, live in urban areas in Canada. So in a couple of years ago, we launched the Bird Friendly City program, thanks to funding and support from Environment and Climate Change Canada. And we've gone through 2 years now of the program. And over those 2 years, you learn a lot. Autumn especially has learned a lot. She's really the face of this program and interacts with a lot of the local partners. And those learnings have led us to where we are today, and which is version 2 of the standards. So that's been informed by conversations we've had from local partners. So essentially, the Bird Friendly City program works is we have a theory of change. And theory of change is that you, as someone living in an urban area, like I do as well, I live in Gatineau, Quebec, and I want the place that I live in to be a good, safe place for birds where bird populations can thrive. And I'm sure a lot of you do. So we're motivated to make that happen. So that's part of the theory of change, is that motivation, that inspiration exists amongst a number of people in your community. And that what we try to do is provide you with some logical tools that will help make that change and make your municipality commit to that. And it's not just the municipality, it's also the people that live there, the residents in the municipality, and it's a partnership. So over the last 2 years, we've learned a lot from experience. People talking to Autumn, sharing stories about what's working with their bird team, and I think we're at 20 certified cities right now, if I'm not mistaken. Some that have been certified for 2 years, some that just got certified more recently, and those learnings have led us through a period of reflection and examination of the standard that we have. And as I've said before, that's led to where we are today, where we're going to present version 2 of it that improves it. So the standard if this is something that's new to you, I am going to assume that there might be some people on the webinar that might be less familiar with the program. Essentially, the certification is based on a scoring system, a set of criteria that are organized by different categories, and it's a point system. So, and the points are accorded based on proof that our evidence that the bird teams provide in an application form to us. We review all of the applications and make an evaluation. And there's 3 different levels of certification that can happen. There's an entry level, there's an intermediate level, and there's a high level. And well, essentially what happened is that the bar, I think, has moved up a little bit, and it's going to be more rigorous now. And this, again, is based on the input. We have a national advisory panel. You can see who's on the panel by going to our Bird Friendly City website. And the National Advisory Panel has representation from major groups and individuals who have expertise in this area, and of course our funder as well. And they've played a pretty significant role in helping us come up with this version. And I want to be really clear that anything that we create, humans generally, is we should always be ready to improve it, recognize that it's not perfect. So again, this version 2 is a result of what I would say adaptive management, learning of some things that we thought needed to be tweaked. So summarize what the big changes are. It's a bit more rigorous now. The application program itself has changed as well. Up until very recently, we've been dealing with applications as they come in and reviewing them in-house and making a decision. Now the application process is different. There will be 2 windows, as Autumn has alluded to, and I think she's been talking to the Bird Friendly City team, bird teams and partnerships for a while, that there's 2 windows in the year. One is going to be in September, and the other is going to be in February. And if you miss one, you get the other. And that's when we'll be reviewing all of the applications to that point. All of the applicants from now on have to use the new standard. So we're in the process of putting the standard up and the application form up on our website. Autumn, can you comment just really briefly what that process is at?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ted. So for the process for the two windows, there will be a very similar downloadable PDF. If you've applied in the past or in the middle of renewing, that same PDF will be made available for you to fill out and complete your criteria as you go along. And when that's done and ready to go, you can send it to me. My email, I'll put in the chat there, and we can go from there with the scoring assessment.
Thank you. Beautiful. Okay, so diving into it. So in the standard has, I'd say, 4 sections to it. So all of the bird-friendly city applicants, so all the bird teams have a common set of what we call mandatory criteria that you have to meet. So these are essentially the same for cities and for small towns. By the way, I will be going through both standards. We have a standard for large or larger municipalities that we say are essentially over 30,000 people. And we have a standard for small municipalities that are 15,000 and under, and that sort of area between 15 and 30,000, you have a choice of which one you want to apply for. The small municipality standard is a little bit simpler, recognizing the capacity differences, for example. So this is for the we call the regular standard. So for the mandatory criteria, previously there were 5 of them, and now there's 7. So you'll see the way this slide is organized, it's sort of before and now. So before there were 5, now there's 7 criteria. So what is different? I've highlighted some of the differences on the column on the right. So one of the differences is around Indigenous engagement. Previously, we simply asked the applicants to describe whose traditional territory they're in, and to simply make an effort to engage the Indigenous community. Now there's a requirement to report on that effort. It's an annual requirement, in fact. So this perspective is something that we think in all dimensions of our life and our work, certainly in the conservation sector, we need and we can learn a lot from, and we only learn if we seek it out. So there's a requirement to be actively seeking that out. This project or this program requires for certification municipal support. In the past, it could have been either a council resolution or a letter from a senior official. That has not changed, except that to achieve intermediate or high level status, you require a resolution from council. And that's because we believe that the resolution from council has to be discussed at council. And this requires a commitment, essentially. And it demonstrates that the council and the municipality is more committed to this. The renewal process is described now, and essentially the renewal process is that at the 2-year anniversary of your application, you have to renew by the next application window. That's what the renewal process essentially says. And finally, World Migratory Bird Day, which was here before, but it was also in category 3 of the optional criteria. Now it's a requirement, but it's been pulled out of the optional criteria. All right, so that's that one. Now moving to, why I say optional, they're not really optional. You still have to do some of these, address some of these criteria in your application. So the first set of them refers to what we call threat reduction. And there's 7 criteria for threat reduction. There's 7 before, there's still 7. The pointing system has been tweaked a little bit. So again, I'm going to concentrate on the right column and the different issues that are dealt with. So these issues, I should say, represent, in our view, and I should say in also the view of the National Advisory Panel, some of the biggest issues that affect birds in our urban areas. And this is also reflected in the science and in the work, especially the synthesis document that Environment Canada published in I think it was 2013 on human-related bird mortality. So the cat issue is the one that receives the most points because it's considered to be the biggest source of bird mortality. And cats are separated here because domestic cats were introduced to North America. They're as with humans. They're not native to North America. We have our own species of wild cats, of course. And so there's 6 points for this one. There still is 6 points for this one, but as well as improving the language and we're trying to remove some of the ambiguity. And we did that in a lot of them. We also make having a no roam bylaw a requirement for the high standard. And that's a challenge thing, but with this one, all points can also be without a no roam bylaw. No, even a no roam bylaw in itself, we found is good, but if the population of your community doesn't know about it, it's pretty ineffective. That seems to be the case where I live. So it needs to be accompanied by other things, education, and it just addresses owned cats as well. Then there's the unowned cats. A no roam bylaw doesn't apply to them. So all of these things are captured in that criteria. For the issue of window collision, which is scored for 5 points, we've clarified the language. We've added the bird safe assessment of how dangerous a building and its facades are to birds into section B of that criteria. And we've also made bird-friendly guidelines a requirement for high level status. Then the other one's light pollution. There's no changes to that one. Pesticides issue, we have changed it from 1 to 2 points. So there'll be a point for the banning of cosmetic use of pesticides and also a point for banning pesticides that are known to be harmful directly or indirectly to birds. And some examples of those are neonicotinoids, BTI, which is used to control mosquitoes, which also kills off all of the larvae of the Dioptera family, so midges and other things that birds depend on heavily, affects in aerial insectivore populations. So pesticides has gained a point. Plastic issue, we've added a caveat about not just having a reduction of the amount of plastic that's generated, but also cleanups, which was part of the small town criteria. And vehicle collision and disturbance, there's no great changes there. So Now this category has 19 points in total, but the entry is 10 as opposed to 9 before. So the entry is a little bit more difficult. Also, to get the high level, which is 16, you again, I'll just emphasize this: you have to have a no roam bylaw, and you have to have bird-friendly glass guidelines. And we know that's going to affect some of your applications, or some of your renewals. But there's a, but this is really a very, very strong reflection of the feedback that we got from partners, and we think can make a difference. So, Autumn, how's the pace of this? Is this okay?
Yep, we're doing good so far. We're hitting the 20-minute mark, so we have, I'd say, like half an hour for the rest before questions.
Okay, perfect. So the next category is of criteria are habitat protection, restoration, and climate reduction, climate resilience. Um, so this essentially is focused on making our uh, our communities better places for birds to live, by improving the habitat, not just by removing threats. So so one of the changes we've done to both criteria 1 and 2 in this category, as well as language clarity, is that we've added another clause where we will remove a point. And this point would be removed if there's some sort of an egregious action that in point 2.1 that's resulted in significant loss of habitat in your community. So, and in 2.2, if there's been loss of biodiversity through, again, some sort of egregious action. So really what we want these categories to recognize and reward is not just the municipalities that have good policies and are implementing them, but also the municipalities that are consistent and not on one hand protecting an area and on the other hand allowing major destruction of an area. And we see lots of examples of that across the board. And this is something that, again, we received feedback that should be captured. And I guess the last word on that is this is where we see the bird team's role as well of kind of being a watchdog of what's going on in your community really being important. It's very, very important that this program leads to positive change and results in helping our bird population. We really want the communities to be proud of it and looking good, but the last thing we want is this to be sort of a greenwashing thing where we can say, oh, we've got bird-friendly city standards, and then someone in your community will say, no, you didn't. You just you clear cut that forest. So this is one of our ways of incorporating that watchdog element into this, and we hope that the bird teams you're going to be the instrumental ones. Your communities, and where there hasn't been consistency. Criteria 2.3 is related to climate change, and there's no big changes there. We do promote natural solutions to climate change as much as possible. This is something that a lot of municipalities are talking about. But those natural solutions that could involve tree planting or habitat planting don't necessarily benefit birds. And our belief is that they can, and just things like species composition can make a very big difference. Habitat management, there's no changes really there. Important bird area, being close to an important bird area, which is some of them are being rolled into the key biodiversity area program. No changes there. or for 2.6 or 2.7, which is about promoting native flora, both in public lands and private lands. The last criteria in this category is related to stewardship to help bird populations. And so there's a lot of birds that live in urban areas that are birds of conservation concern. Mentioned things for aerial insectivores, swifts and swallows, for example. There's a lot of urban areas that also, a lot of municipalities that have rural areas on their fringes, and these rural areas support grassland birds. There's some municipalities that have shorelines and coastlines that have habitats for shorebirds. All of those types of habitats and those types of species that require stewardship to protect and improve their habitat are rewarded. So basically, we go from 1 point in this one to 2 points if there's multiple projects. And the last category, which is outreach and education, community education. This category has changed a little bit, and one of the things, we've removed the World Migratory Bird Day from it. It used to be an easy way to get points because it was both a mandatory thing and also you got 4 points for it. Now it's gone from there. So no longer easy points for holding a World Migratory Bird Day event, but you have to do it. Other than that, there's some consistency in language, clarity. We removed another one of the criteria. Criteria used to be criteria 3.7, which was to have public access to a list of birds from your community or some sort of a publication. Our decision was that that's no longer really necessary. Age of social media, internet, and all of that. They're an eBird. Some communities choose to still have a published bird list, and I still like collecting those myself. Autumn smiling probably does too. But it is really hard to justify getting a point for something like that when information is so easily available. We have made a change though to the business one, which was 3.8 before. Now it's 3.6. And so the bird-friendly businesses is now something that we scale to the population. And we describe a little bit better what a bird-friendly business is also. This is something that we're really interested in promoting. But we also, at early stages of getting our bird-friendly city applications, we would get a lot of applications that would say, oh, okay, we have a Home Depot or Canadian Tire, and they sell bird seed and other things, that are helpful for birds. So that's a point. And, 2 counters over, they also sell Roundup, and they also sell these sticky things that birds can get caught on and stuff. So we have been more clear in defining what a bird-friendly business is. And hopefully that will help the applicants understand it. Part of our rewriting the criteria was also to make it clear for the applicant what they have to do, so that when you do come to us and you do go to Autumn for assistance, your question is one that really does need us and isn't really a result of ambiguous language. And lastly, the other one that's gotten another point here is participatory science projects. So prior to now, there was 1 point for this one for having like the citizen. We call it citizen science before. We're using participatory science because we realized that the word citizen is a word that carries some heft in weight, and there's a lot of people living around us who are not citizens of Canada, but have every right to be here as well. And so participatory science is a word that we've chosen to use for this. And we also chose to award communities that have greater than 3 projects, like Christmas bird counts and various other things. So in conclusion, I'll mention this point now, but for your application, you're judged on, and your whatever level of bird-friendly city status you end up with is based on the lowest score for any of those categories. So if you score high in 2 of the categories, but you score low on another one, your ultimate status will be low. So that's a pretty strong incentive to work and understand where the work is. We hope that this program will lead to continuing work and understanding and focus your work on areas where you need to. Okay, Autumn, before I move into the small municipality standard, do you have anything to add?
I guess I should also add, if you haven't seen it already, our companion guides are up on the website, also under the resources tab, available in English and French. And those are some really great resources that include a lot of examples and templates from the past 2 years applicants who have worked to become more bird friendly in their own municipalities. So if you haven't gave those documents a look at yet, I highly recommend doing so.
Thanks, Autumn. That's awesome. And I think you mentioned it already, but we're doing this same webinar en français tomorrow. So
Yes. I'm excited.
so if you are a francophone and you weren't aware of that, you want to listen to the French version of it. Might be a little bit different. We'll have Amélie from Québec Oiseau participating in that one with me. Yeah, so the small town standard is it's also been modified. It's interesting. We developed it almost a year after we developed the regular standard. So a lot of the wording in it, in fact, some of that's affected the wording in the regular standard. So there's still mandatory criteria. They're essentially the same as they are in the regular standard. But before there was 6, now there's 7, and we've added the renewal status one, and we've also put World Migratory Bird Day in here. It actually was in the previous one. For the first category of which refers to threat reduction, there are 7 criteria. And not a lot of changes here. We have we have given the light pollution issue an added point, which is based on 2 things. One is having a sort of a light pollution policy and strategy, but also having a community outreach. One thing with light pollution is it's an issue all the time, but it's a particularly acute issue during migration season, when light pollution can influence and disrupt nocturnal migration. And in the spring and the fall, that can certainly have an effect in even small communities. That can happen. This is already part of the regular standard, so we essentially worked it into the small community standard as well. Pesticides doesn't change, so you see we actually give it more points here than we do for the other one, because we have a organic farming or no pesticide farming component built into it, because this small community municipality standard, there's a lot of rural areas it would apply to. And yeah, it's essentially it. There's one more one more point here, but the entry level is still 7 and the high level is still 14. And for habitat protection, restoration, and climate resiliency, the changes here, yes, so we have this is one of the differences between the small municipality standard and the regular standard, is that those first 3 categories, which are based on policies and essentially require a fairly intense and high level of capacity. Those are very rarely part of the sort of the package of what a small municipality has ability to deliver. So we've combined them all into one, really, protected area, biodiversity, and climate. And as we did with part 1 and part 2 in the regular standard, we also added that clause about you can lose a point for either habitat or biodiversity loss in this one. And other than that, there's the only other change is for the last criteria in this one, which is the stewardship one. And again, we have 2 points in this case if there's more than 2 active projects in your community, as opposed to 1. So here, this has increased the total to 12 over 11. And I think you can probably see what we've done here. The entry point is approximately half of the points in the category. Usually there's some additional requirements. You might have to have representation, certain number of points that address certain criteria. You have to look at the application to see that. But generally, 50% of the points in the category will get you in entry-level status, and approximately 80 to 85% of the points will get you high level. And the final one here, which is community outreach and education. Again, World Migratory Bird Day is moved out. For the first criteria, which addresses children and youth, we have added a point to this one to address, say, underprivileged, racialized youth in your community. The next, there's no changes for a few. Just as we did with the regular standard, we removed having the requirement of having a list or a bird guide in the community as one of the criteria for this, so that's gone. Yeah, we've also just modified the wording around having a town bird. And again, if you're new to this, this is one of the, I would say, one of the fun criteria that is a very good community engagement tool, is to select a bird emblem for your community. One of the changes here is that we want this to be an official 5th thing that is endorsed by council. So it's something that a lot of municipalities already have. I know there's several municipalities in Quebec, for example, that have town or city birds already. So it's a great engagement tool, and that pretty much sums it up. The point system is a little bit different, but it's still halfway for entry. It's 5 for entry, and it's, in this case, 9 for high. And I'm going to end with this slide, which is one of my favorite slides because it's got everything there. It's got the the stuffed birds looking through the bird-friendly window with the feather-friendly markers on it at a real pileated woodpecker, and this is in the middle of a city. And it shows you how you can attract very interesting birds to your place in a safe way, uh, with the right habitat, and still enjoy them. So, and that's I'm going to stop, Autumn, and we can maybe look at some of the questions.
For sure. Thank you, Ted. I love this picture. You know that pileatids are my favorite, so I'm very jealous that you have one in your backyard, if that is from your backyard.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. Do folks have any questions? We have the first one in the Q&A here. So we have an estimate on when the new standards will be available online and when the template will be out. So great question, Don and anonymous attendees. Those are in the works behind the scenes. So we hope for them to be completed by early August to mid-August. At the latest, based on our comms team's capacity to make the adjustments in the documents. However, the working document, which is just your typical Word document, has been shared with all the teams with the revised standards. So in the meantime, you can work from there. In regards to adding photos and other documents, those will be able to be included in the template application. And additional tech support is available if you shoot me a message if you have any issues with the PDF application. And if the tech side of things does make you rip your hair out, you can send along the photos and additional documents just as an attachment along with your actual criteria submission. If you can't all get it into one PDF, that's a-okay, as long as our national advisory panel can access everything. And we have another question. How can we get cities to install products like Feather Friendly before the development begins? Is there a more affordable way to encourage businesses to do so? That's a great question. A really great question. I would say that one of the best ways, in my opinion, Ted, before maybe you want to add something to this, would be to advocate for bird-friendly design guidelines in your community if you don't have one already. Toronto was the first city in the country to have this in their municipal code and continues to do so. When I visited Toronto a few weekends ago, I saw Feather Friendly as soon as I got off the train at Union Station. So super amazing to see. But again, that being their municipal standard makes that the most easeful way to include feather friendly and other bird friendly design before the actual development phase. Some communities also have standards which are optional that the developer would have to choose to do themselves. So in that case, you know, this is the time in which bird-friendly coalitions and working groups can advocate around the standards and perhaps apply pressure to decision makers to ensure that new developments follow the optional standards. Do you have anything you'd want to add there, Ted, as well as the a more affordable way to encourage businesses to do so?
I guess what I would say is that one of our theories of change is that, you know, people follow by example often. So having examples to point to in your community, and as well to recognize and amplify is really helpful. Uh, those are all things. Sometimes it's tough to get uh, these sorts of changes recognized in policy. It's kind of an ongoing battle, and finding an ally on council is always kind of a starting point. And you know, Autumn is definitely the person to talk to about those types of strategies for change. We also can provide a small kit from Feather Friendly that they've been good enough to give us to communities that are kind of starting out. So If you have a want a sort of a starting place, that's it. And that's not the only approach. There's all sorts of, it's all really about making windows visible. And I do want to say that most bird mortality from window collisions is not from the tall buildings, it's from residences and small rise buildings. So don't forget that. There's other ways of addressing that issue that need to be incorporated into your work. Oh, and finally, we do have we're working on a tracking system to track what you're doing to address that particular issue. We're working on this with FLAP, and Autumn can explain more about that at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Ted. Dawn mentions that they need the template at least a month before submission for the town to review. Totally understand that, Dawn, and we'll do our best to make sure that happens. Please let me know when the town will be reviewing it before you submit your final application. And Michael says, oh, this is a great suggestion from Michael, encouraging tax incentive programs to be introduced in your community. Michael, would you like to come off mute and maybe explain that a bit further? Let me just make sure you have those permissions if you'd like to, but no pressure, of course.
No problem. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Right. So one of the biggest challenges here in getting buildings to retrofit is cost. And what's lacking right across the entire country is providing these large corporations with tax incentives to be able to afford to invest in these products. So if we can introduce those types of incentives, I think we'll see a much better uptake on buildings that might be sitting on the fence to install bird collision deterrent markers on their structures. So yeah, just push that message right at the city council level. You can even push that at the provincial level, whatever you're inclined to do. And I think, again, more of these opportunities being made available, we'll see better results.
Thank you, Michael. And then we have another question from Penny from Lions Bay Bird Friendly. Will Nature Canada be making grant funding available again? Some of the criteria require a funding source. Ted, would you like to hop in on this one?
Yeah, we will. We will have a small grant program. We're in the process of determining the budget, so there will be a limited amount of money made available. I wanted to go back to another point, though, just in case you're not clear on this. The templates is all available with the standard, the criteria, and Autumn can send you that as a PDF or a Word document, your choice, whenever you want. That's available. It's just the application form, the automated form is not now. So anyone who needs that, they can get it now and start working on it. Nice comment about the Ontario Breeding Bird Atlas. Yeah, it's in the third year, that Atlas project, and yeah, that would count towards certainly one of the participatory science projects.
And Penny, sorry for the confusion there. So I do have your renewal form from the previous year. So in year 2, you don't need to do a renewal and a certification. The renewal is that check-in period at year 1. Sorry, the annual reporting is the check-in period at year 1. And the renewal process is what we talked about today, and that would be year 2. So no need to do both. That's a lot of work, and Lions Bay is up to a lot of great stuff. So the only thing required for this February from Lions Bay would be the renewal, which can be worked on, as Ted mentioned, before the final template is available. It can be used using a working document and then transferred over into that final template if any decision makers or other folks need to review it before the submission comes in. And if folks have any other questions, my email is also in the chat there. It's the second one. I misspelled my name the first time. So just ajordan@naturecanada.ca. Hi, Dawn. Yes, I can send you that submission template again today. Absolutely. And no problem, Penny. John mentions that the qualifications for the small grants are much more restrictive now. We've had to make this the case, unfortunately, due to a variety of different factors, focusing on boots on the ground restoration and stewardship initiatives, as well as funding sources to kickstart bird teams, are our focus for the amount of limited funds that we receive to be able to distribute within the community. But of course, we're always open to new ideas and new applications, and always encourage applicants to request the amounts that they need to get the job done. And if that isn't a possibility, we will always come back and make sure to see if we can help in another way. So anything else you wanted to add about the small grants or other resources and templates, Ted, that I might have missed?
Yeah. No, I think you summed it up very well, but I guess sometimes it's better to say things multiple times. So if you're applying, or if you're worried about this, we can send you the application now, the CRITE standard, and you can start working on that. In the worst case scenario, if we have a technological collapse at Nature Canada, really what we need when we do the evaluation is we need you to complete the questions and to provide the evidence. And if we end up having to do it as in a Word document with attachments to it, that's fine. Our intention is to have a fillable PDF and all of that automated on our website. But in the meantime, the other will certainly match, and there's nothing holding you back from starting on it. I was also going to say that the other thing related to funding is there are sources of funding in every community. There's community foundations, there's things like TD Friend of the Environment Fund. There's other funds to apply. Some of you have lots of experience with that. If you don't, again, I think that's something, Autumn, you can probably do some coaching on and help out with, because putting together a good funding application is something that is, if you have never done it before, there's some little tips and tricks that we can suggest to you.
Hi, Dawn. I just saw your question. You have the standard, but you need the template. You don't want to do it twice. I'm going to let you come off mute there, Dawn. I'm a bit confused. The standard and the template are the same thing. So we may be using the same lexicon for meaning different things. So you should be able to come off mute now, Dawn.
Okay, so the template for the application is what I'm talking about. So I don't think you're planning to have that out till after the beginning of August. The first Tuesday of the month is when the council meets in the summer. They only have 2 meetings in the summer, one per month. And it's only fair to give them a copy of our application before we have to submit. Well, we have to submit the 1st of September. Council will want to take a look at it and take some time with it. So we need the template for the application. Now we have your new standard, but we need the template so that we can submit. Otherwise, if I fill in the old template and send it to them, then I got to do the whole thing again on the new template. And it really requires a lot of cutting and pasting. I spent about 8 hours cutting and pasting into Word documents so that I can put it into the template yesterday. We're about, I would say, 3/4 finished of gathering our information. We're at the stage where we want to be populating the template, the application. And we've got less than 2 months. We're mid-July, mid-August. mid-September for submission. So we're less than 2 months away, but we still don't have an application that we can fill out. So that's my concern.
So Don, the working doc, that Word doc that you have, that is able to be submitted and shared with council.
And then I have to redo it again because it's
Nope.
all.
No, we are more than happy to review the working doc for you that has been reviewed by council, whether that's in a PDF application or a Word document. Keeping in mind with your timelines, that fillable PDF will be available hopefully with comms capacity early August. And as that may not align with your timeline, it's completely acceptable to submit your application in the Word doc that you've already been working on for the past 8 hours. You can also send in that working document as a Word document to council to review. They can add any feedback. You can submit that with their approval and feedback to Nature Canada for our scoring committee
Okay, that's
to
what
review.
we'll do, because even when you say early August, the first Tuesday, first Monday of the month is when they meet. So that's going to be too late unless we start doing what's existing. But that would be the 7th of August. So we need to do it on some other document then if we're going to meet your date.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'd be more than happy to help you out with that, Dawn. Totally understand those frustrations, and the Word document is totally acceptable. Our first 3 applicants in Toronto, Vancouver, and London submitted theirs as Word documents, and we were actually inspired by Bird Friendly Calgary, which we base the fillable PDF on these days, because they created that all themselves. And I thought to myself, this is so great. We want all the towns to have this sort of fillable PDF for easier completion. But with these small tweaks and updates that we are making to the standard, it'll take a bit of time for those to be reflected in the PDF, but all those changes are currently reflected in the Word document. So everyone on the call can work from there. And I'll make sure, Dawn, to send you after we get off this webinar today, I'll make sure to send out the finalized small town standard to you, Dawn.
Well, I have that.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
And then from John, yes, the grants need to be incorporated or have charity status to apply for grants. That is correct. This has always been the case, in which a bird friendly team can either partner with an incorporated entity or charity. This is so that we can make sure that we are financially secure and that our finance team can properly process the invoice to folks who have a bank account to receive the funds. Anything you want to add there, Ted?
No, just that the concept of the bird team is we would like the bird teams, we're trying to encourage them to be as diverse as possible in terms of bringing in other groups and people. So I hope that within whatever the community you're in, there exists a charity with the right status that would want to be part of this. And that could be the purpose they serve. I think we're at time, probably.
Yes, I am just going to answer these last 2 questions before we pop off. Linda asks, is there a form that needs to be filled out as an application for a grant? I have circulated a guideline and outline that folks can use with all the sections that must be included in an application. And I'll make sure you get that form, Linda. It includes all the eligibility requirements. And in the case of the TD environmental grants, societies can apply, municipalities can though. Yes, that's the unfortunate case there. Perhaps we could partner in that case, Penny, with someone at the municipality to partner with on these applications. We know that community funding, especially for environmental causes, is always of huge need with little access. So we recognize this constraint and we do our best to try and fix that through a variety of different options, one of which is our small grant program. So thank you all for being here today. I know that was a lot of information, and you may want to review it after this call. So this recording will again be made available on our YouTube channel, which is just Nature Canada 1 on YouTube. And we look forward to reviewing your applications in September. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at ajordan@naturecanada.ca. Happy birding, everyone.
Thank you.